Welcome. Let me do a poll. No, that's a mean poll. Let's do a nice poll. Um, 1 to 5. 5 meaning this is the best thing ever. 1 meaning I'm so lost. All right. And let's go anonymous. How are you feeling about Redux right now? I would love to see a lot of 3s. 3s, 2s are fine. 1s are okay as well. Right? Like I said on Monday, this isn't something that we're going to learn in one shot. Yeah, it seems to be about where I see after day 1 of Redux, where most students are, right in the middle there. Got a 5 on here. We also only have 25 votes, and there are 50 of us here, so I would love to see some more votes in here. I would also love if you want to add a comment. Breaking down the tiers is number 1. If you want to add a comment, what you are finding to be the single most difficult part of Redux, if you could add comment in there, just saying like, what do you think is the hardest part of Redux, or the most difficult part of it, or the most difficult part of learning it, or just post it in Slack. Following me is difficult? Oh man, I don't like to hear that. A lot of importing and exporting, and it's about to get even more difficult in that aspect. The speed of things that we learn at, or the speed of things that I do things at. So I think I break it down pretty well. But please post that feedback in your retrospectives as well. Anyone else? I mean, I've got essentially 2 answers here. What do you think is the most difficult part of learning Redux? Throw it into Slack, or you can add a comment in that poll and it'll be anonymous. Where all this stuff goes. That's really a tough one, and I completely sympathize with that. It's really weird to kind of get that organization down, right? Redux has so many moving pieces. They all want their own folders and their own files, and really the organization is difficult. Reducer pattern, immutability of state, that's difficult as well. And it's gonna get more difficult with the bigger, I'll say with like bigger states. It gets more difficult in that aspect, where you have to make sure that you're deeply copying something that you're not changing, or that you are changing. You know the immutability part is hard as well. Dispatch, we don't use dispatch anymore, right? We are tonight, but we'll go over that in a lot more detail. But we'll go over that tonight. And actions, I'm going to say, hopefully, should become one of those things that are the easiest part of Redux, because actions are simply going to be objects with a type and a payload, and that's it. All right. Now, how they actually get called and how they get passed, number 1, we don't have to worry about how they get passed any longer, because React Redux is doing that for us. But hopefully over time, actions become the easiest part of Redux. Let's see. Context feels like a better choice, and like I said, I had that anecdote on Monday where I was building a personal project and I switched everything to context, and then once it got to a certain size, it completely broke, and that's because context wasn't designed to really wasn't designed to support big applications and a lot of state. And I was using a lot of state, and state was constantly changing, maybe 1,000 times a minute. And so at that point, context breaks down. Redux, on the other hand, actually, that's where it thrives. So, yeah, it's context does feel like the right choice, and it probably is the right choice for the stuff we're going to be building in class, right? But it's important to understand what Redux is. Completely broke, like was re-rendering the entire app hundreds of times a minute, and was completely slowing everything down and breaking the browser. So yeah, broke. Wasn't efficient at all. But we're learning Redux. And the thing is, most React jobs out there are using Redux as well, or some other state management library. But if they're not using GraphQL, they're probably using Redux. Okay. SRW, not sure. Could you expand on that? I'd have to look into it. I've seen the logo before, but I have not used it before. So it just seems like a library, though, as well. Cool. We actually have a Lambda student at Zeit. Yeah, a really awesome Lambda student went to Zeit. So let's actually get started tonight. We're going to build an app completely from scratch, and we're going to implement Redux with it. And then we're going to expand it a little bit. Okay. All right. So let's just build essentially that little title thing we had last time. So let's think about and let's plan out how we're going to build this using Redux first and foremost. So I have already, as you can see, imported the Redux and React Redux into our application here. What would be your logical first step if you were building an app with Redux what would be your logical first step? And it could be anything. There's really no right answer to this. An action? Okay, cool. So you're saying that the first step you want to do is to build an action, right? And let's actually look at school.com. I really like this illustration, even though it's a little confusing, but it won't be tonight. Advanced state management, async Redux. Okay. Oh, no, I want a regular Redux, not async. Okay, so what's our view? Does anyone know what our view is? You can just throw it in the Slack. What the view part means. Yeah, the UI, what we know as React, right? And we can even say that all of React is in the view. Okay? All of React is in our view here. So we can just replace this instead of view, we can just say React. Now we say view here because Redux is not necessarily a React library, but it's a state management library. But this is our view as React. Okay, so the first thing a view is going to do is a view is going to trigger some actions, right? The actions are going to, let's bypass this for a moment, The actions are going to be sent to our reducer, and our reducer is going to do something in there and return some state to us. Our state will then be passed to our view. So you have this big circle here. So really, honestly, all three of these, we can write first, okay? You can write your actions first. You can come through here and say like, hey, I've got this title, right, that I want to be able to click on and then change it. So that click, I'm going to need an action for that. The change, I'm going to need an action for that. You can write those actions first if you'd like. Most people don't do that first, all right? But it's totally valid. Most people are going to start with their state. Like, what do I want my state to look like, right? If you write your reducers first as well, totally fine. Okay, it really, I think one of the harder parts about Redux are like, nothing's going to work until you write all of it, right? Like, you can write a reducer with some initial state and get that to go into your view and like, okay, that's working. But until you write your action and then you write a case in your reducer for that specific action that returns the specific state and then link your view up to the action, you're not going to have that full circle yet. So it's really difficult. And I appreciate how difficult that is. So you find the pattern that works best for you. For me, I always write my state first. But first and foremost, what I always do is I just set it up, right? I'm going to put a reducers folder, and you're like, well, why are you putting reducers? Because you can have multiple reducers. We're not going to do that right now, and then I'm going to write an actions folder as well. Okay. And all I want to do is I want to get some state to link up to my app so that I can view it, right? And so like, okay, cool. Redux is working right now, right? So in my reducers, I'm just going to do an index.js just for now. I'm going to actually add multiple reducers tonight, but I want to say initial state. Okay. And so in our initial state, we just want to do the title thing that we were doing on Monday. So what pieces of state does my app need for this? Does anyone remember? Yeah, we need a title. We're just going to be like, this is coming from the reducer. And we want an editing Boolean, whether it's true or false, if we are currently editing that, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my reducer. Okay. When I create my reducer, all I want to do is return this initial state. So I can do that if I want. We could do that, but we can set it up a little bit better as well. What two arguments does my reducer always take? And what order do they come in? I see a lot of typing, so I'm going to wait for everyone to answer. Yeah, we got our state and our action. Okay, so our reducer function here is always going to be passed the what variance of state is this? Does anyone know what kind of state this is? Yeah, it's the current state of our reducer, right? It's the current state. Okay, and so we're initially going to return the initial state, but then once we start changing state, this is always going to be what our current state is. All right. And so just keep that in mind. And then our action is going to be whatever action was dispatched to our reducer. Now, we can give it the initial state by using default initial state, default parameters or default arguments here, right? So this is saying, this is JavaScript. Oh, initial state, right? This is JavaScript saying, hey, this is just a function. And if nothing is supplied for state, just make state equal to whatever this is, okay? And you can use this anywhere you want in JavaScript. It works, all right? Anywhere you want. So then we're just going to return our state now. Now, the first time this reducer runs, what is our state going to be? What is going to be returned here? Yeah, it's our current state, but it's also the initial state, right? So we're seeding this essentially. We're seeding our reducer with some state for it, okay? So keep that in mind. And that's all we're going to do right now, all right? This is just a little review. Now I want to hook my reducer up to my app. What do I need to do in here? How do I hook it up to an app? Yeah, we need to create a store. And where do we get create store from? Do we get that from Redux or React Redux? Question for you all. I don't expect you to memorize this, but it's important to start to begin to understand. Yeah, Redux, where we're going to see one or two more items that we get from Redux today, and that's it. Okay, create store. We're going to get create store from Redux. And then let's create our store. Oh, we also need to import one other thing. What thing do we need to import here before we import provider? So we're actually not going to use reducer anymore with Redux, right? Use reducer is a React hook, and we're using Redux now. So use reducer, we can kind of forget about it unless we are we're using that hook. And before we do provider, we actually need to import our reducer, right? We need to import this title reducer. If we want to create a store with this reducer, we need to import that. Okay, so we're going to import title reducer from reducers. Okay, so that's going to give us our reducer. And we can even see should get a function. And there we go. We got our function. Okay. So now, once we have create store and we have at least one of our reducers, then we can actually create our store. I'm actually going to do a little bit of this. I like to separate things out so I know what's coming from where. So now we're going to say store. Can I call this anything I want? Yeah, I can call it whatever I want, right? We're going to call it store usually just because it makes things easier and we know what we're talking about. And what do I pass into create store here? It can be let or const. You know, it's not going to change, so probably const will be better. But either one's fine. Yeah, so I'm going to pass my reducer into the store. Bonus question, what is create store doing to our reducer? Ooh, this is bonus. Storing it, yep, sure is. Creating memory, sure is. What it's doing is it's actually going to call our reducer, right? it's going to call this function. We're passing a function in here, and this little guy right here is called a higher order function, is going to call this function, and then it's going to store whatever is returned to it as our state, right? And then it's going to give us some other functions that we can access and change the state, dispatch and subscribe and get state. But this is doing all that for us, okay? So it's going to call that function, it's going to pass it a bogus action, it's going to get that initial state, and that's what we're going to get. Okay, now that we have our store, right, and we can make sure that we have it, by all means, console log all the whole way. We see that we have our store now, okay? Now how do we hook it up to React? Yeah, we need to get our provider. Where does our provider come from? Our provider comes from the helper library React Redux. Okay. Provider is a higher order component. All right. We want to wrap, just like when we did context.provider, we want to wrap our entire everything that we want to have access to this Redux store with our provider. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap the whole app. Oh boy. Provider. And then what one prop does the provider component take? Not getting connect yet. We're not going to use connect here. Not yet. Yeah, it takes store. Okay, there's a prop that provider takes called store, and we are going to pass it our Redux store. Okay. Now provider takes control of the store, calls dispatch for us, calls subscribe for us, calls get state for us, allows us to get complete access of the store without really having to worry about calling all of those methods ourselves and keeping track of what the store is, okay? So that's what provider's doing for us. Next step. We're almost there to actually just get this in place. So now let's go back into our app and let's throw our title up here. Let me get some, I'm gonna snag some CSS from my notes. And then, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. And then I will snag some H1. And I want this to be our title, okay? I want this to be our title. How do I change this from title to whatever is in our Redux store? How do I get access to that store that provider is providing to our entire app? Yeah, we have to use the connect method. And where do I get connect from? Yes, I get connect from React Redux. Okay. Connect from React Redux. Okay. So we're not using the Redux hooks right now, so we don't have to worry about those. If you want to look into those in the future, you're more than welcome to on your own. So now how do I connect this app to that store? Now that I have connect. There's a lot of steps here. I understand. Let's get the first step. Several people are typing. I'm assuming you're going to type the whole line in, but the export connects with true. Yeah, technical terms. Yeah, so what we're going to do is instead of exporting the app as is, we're going to pass it through our connect first. So we're just going to say export default. And we're going to default export connect. We're going to call connect once with some arguments, and then we're going to call it a second time with the actual component that we're exporting. Okay. So now it should work. All right. This is the title. Okay, so it's working. Connect takes 2 arguments. What is that first argument? And I see a couple of you have posted it up here. Called map state to props. Okay, that's what it's called. We can create a function called map state to props if we want. A lot of times you'll just see it written in line. So that first argument is a function. What one argument does that function get passed? The state, right? And this is our current state of our reducer here. So this is all of our state, right? And this is all of our state. And let's say we had, let's just go friends, right? In here. And we don't need that friends in our app here. Not yet. It's not in this component. We don't want that. We don't need it. If we don't need it in here, we don't want to include it. Why don't we want to include it? Yeah, because if we include it and this changes, even if it's not being used in here, that means the app's props are changing. And when when a component's props change, it gets an automatic re-render. Okay, so we do not want that to be re-rendered. All right, we only want to get the pieces of state that we need. So we are going to return what data type from map state to props? It's an object. And what is this object representing? Ooh, not quite representing the state. It's representing the props that we want to be put on app here, right? So we're going to pass some props to app, and we get to name them whenever we want right here. And then we get to say, this prop is this part of the state. We don't even have to do that, right? Remember, I can pass it any props I want. Oh, let's throw that in there. Props. No. Why are we getting this dispatch? Let's see why this is not working the way I want it to. I might have another console log open. Yeah, I don't have a name in there. Okay, well, let's just see. Title state.title. Oh, I think this might be a state the props, return title. I think this is another code sandbox error. This should be working. Let's see if it works if I put it in line. Save it. Oh, Code Sandbox, you're killing me. This is totally valid. Oh boy. Maybe I will create a components. I think Code Sandbox has an issue with the app. We'll go title. I'm just going to do one of these. This should work, honestly, but I think we're having an issue with Code Sandbox here today. Okay, and then let's get rid of that, get rid of that, that. And we'll import title. Oh, don't need that. All right, let's see what we got. Where are we getting an error? Expected a string. Oh yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Of course. Explore default app. Okay. Okay, that's the title. Then in title, let's go log our props. And this better work. It did. Okay. Code Sandbox has an issue with us using app as our connect. Anyways, all right. So all I did was break this out to return the new title. So just like I can show you before, I can add whatever. Oop, maybe not. Okay, I'm not going to go there. What we're doing here is that we are creating props for our component. Okay, so if I create a prop called title, then I can use a prop called title inside of this component, right? And what that's going to be connected to, what the data is going to be, is whatever's in our state. And that is going to be whatever state.title. And we can console log our state to see. Oh boy, Code Sandbox is all kinds of messed up right now. Okay, let's just stick with this. What this is doing is this is giving us a prop called title, and we're letting it say state.title. Okay, so we can use that in our component. Just saying props.title. And now we can see that our title is coming from our reducer. All right. Any questions right now on this other than those stupid Code Sandbox issues I've just been having? Thank you for getting me through, helping me get through those. You can deconstruct the props 100%. Yep. If you'd like to, if it helps you. Does everybody understand where we're at right now? Essentially, we have done a quick little, we haven't done this part yet. Okay. We've created a reducer, a state, and a view. All right. That's what we've done so far. Questions about this at all? Otherwise, we're good to go. I'm going to write a little poll for you. It's anonymous. And could you set this up, what we currently have, by yourself right now? And those that can't, those that say false, what areas would catch you up? You let me just say this: you're allowed to look at the docs, you're allowed to look at other projects, but you understand what's happening here. Correct, Dylan. Yes, the state coming in to our Connect is our store, right? It's our store here. It's our state, and right now our state is this. Okay. And if you do say false, please maybe add a comment and say like what part was really tripping you up. I see some typing, so I'm gonna give it a moment. I don't think that anyone should be expected to set a Redux app up off the top of their head 2 days after learning Redux for the first time, honestly. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't ever say set this up off the top of your head. I can set it off the top of my head now because I've done it a lot, but I still look too sometimes. But I definitely don't expect any of you to set this up completely blind off the top of your head. Okay, we need one more piece in order to complete this circle, this mini circle here. We're going to actions to reducer. We're going to skip this part for now. And that's actions. Okay, let's create a simple action. Let's come into actions. Let's just do an index.js. And then we are going to export const, and let's just say set edit true. And we are going to create what's called an action creator. Okay, action creator. All right, action creator is going to return an action for us. It's a function that's going to return an action. What this allows us to do is this allows us to pass it a payload. It allows us to do a number of things that we're going to see here in a couple minutes after our break, what it actually does, where we can make it deeper and more powerful. And so what we want to do here is we want to return an action. What one key must an action always have? Action must always have a type. Okay, that's the only key it needs. It just needs a type. It needs to be able to, and really, how would you, in very simple terms, how would you describe what the action type was in like the simplest terms ever? And there's no right answer or wrong answer to this. What its function is? Yep. Tells the reducer what to do? Yeah. Essentially, that's what the type is doing, right? It's telling the reducer what we want it to do. I'd say it's like instructions to the reducer. It's a verb. It 100% is a verb, right? It's saying, hey, reducer, this is what I would like you to do. And the reducer might say, I have no idea what you're asking for me, so here's the default state back. Otherwise, it's saying, oh, I know exactly what you're asking of me. There's what I'd like to do with it. So the action type is essentially instructions to the reducer. So let's just go editing. Let's just call this editing, okay? So we have exported this. We have called it editing, and we are going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll set it up and hook it up after, and then we'll get a little deeper. But in 5 minutes, we'll figure that out. 5-minute timer and the classic 5-minute timer. I'll see you in 5. come on back. And 1 second, we will get, maybe get back into Slack. Let's get our action hooked up. Okay, now that we have an action here, what's our next step? I'll say, now that we have an actual action, what's our next step? What should be our next step? It could be one of two things. Two different options. Thank you for posting both options, Brian and Shirag. We can either dispatch it by way of map dispatch to props, or we can create the case in our reducer. Now, because dispatching it, we won't really be able to tell if it's working or not until we have our case in the reducer. I opt to have our case in the reducer. Okay, so let's now, instead of just returning state, let's actually return our action or our state. And what should we use? What is the common use for our reducer here to return it? To return our state? Ugh, if I can talk. Yeah, switch statement. Okay. One of these things too, where you are probably going to look up the syntax for a switch statement every time. So we're going to switch on our action.type. All right, always. And then we're going to say case. I'm going to say editing. Okay. Also, our switch statement is always going to have a default. And our default should be return state, something around there. Okay. So we are going to return something. Can I return that? Or let's even better. I cannot. Well, I could, but it's going to do something weird and funky and not work. What I have to do is I have to make a copy of our state. Okay. I can make a copy of our state using object.assign. I can also make a copy of our state of just by creating an object literal and spreading our state. Okay. Once I have a full object of our state here, I can then reassign a key value pair inside of that. All right. So this is the shorthand way of doing it, spreading our state and reassigning one of the key value pairs. This is the same, let me just ask you a question here. If I had this as an object and I said object.editing, what would it be? Editing would be true. I can have multiple keys of the same type in an object, but only one of them is going to stick, okay? And it's the last one that comes. So what's happening here when I say state is we're actually doing this. Editing, state.editing, and then title, state.title. This is actually what we're doing, okay, when I spread. So we're going to have two editings in here, but I can say editing true after I spread it, and it'll take effect, okay? Just a little example of what's going on behind the scenes when we spread an object. Oop. Okay, so this is going to return a new state to us, and it is going to also have editing as true. I'm going to copy paste a little bit of a little bit of HTML/JSX. And oh no, we are going to do that. Okay. And this is just from our project that we worked on Monday. Where are we at? Okay. And then we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to get rid of this. And okay. No, nope, we don't have state. We have props. Editing. So we're gonna. It's gonna say props.editing. Why is this breaking right now? Oh, besides state.title, say props.title. Okay. What is props.editing for us at the moment? Anyone got a guess? What props.editing for us is for us? Undefined. Why is it undefined? Yeah, we're not. Well, not importing it. Just adding a couple little things in here. Yeah, we haven't done our connect our map state to props. We only have title in there. We don't have editing in here, right? So let's add editing. Editing, and that's state.editing. One second. Let's see. Should have our little guy there, but so we'll have editing in here. Ooh, oh yeah. I don't know why that erased all of that. No, we have it. One second. Let me look through my notes and make sure that I'm not missing any packages. Nope, 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 nope. I'm missing some sort of package in here. Styles.css. Yes, yes. Okay, I'm just going to, instead of doing on click on that, I'm just going to on click on our title. So let's go on click. I don't know why the little icon wasn't showing up right now, but for now, let's just go and look and see what happens if we change our reducer to editing true. And we should have our editing screen here. Okay, so that's working. Let's come back in here. Okay, so now finally one last step in order to hook all this up. I need to do what? I need to import our action creator. I need to map dispatch to props, and then I need to use that prop in my on click here. So let's import the action creator. I believe it's called set editing, set edit true. From, oops, it should actually be from actions. And that's all we need. Okay, so now that I have this, this is a function, right? This is a JavaScript function that returns an object. It is very simple. It's a function that returns an object. So I can come in here and then map dispatch to props, which is the second argument of connect, is actually going to allow us to create a prop and then map it to an action creator. Remember, this is kind of what I feel is the most difficult part. I'm going to call it set editing true, and I'm going to, oh boy, I'm going to pass in set edit true. So let's just call them both the same. So now I have access to a prop in title called set edit true. It is a function. It is actually going to call this function. But the crazy thing is once it calls this and returns this action, Connect is going to automatically dispatch that action for us. Okay, so that's the kind of a little behind the scenes thing that's happening that I think is fairly easy to miss of what's happening here. Okay. Otherwise, we would just be able to call the actual function inside of here, right? So let's say props dot set edit true, and we call it. All right, so if I click on this, set edit true is not a function. Of course it's not, because you are let's see, this gotta be a why is it saying that? True, not a function. Okay, let's see if we're actually importing it. Yep, perfect. Is that the only way to pass functions as props when using Redux? Oh, Brian, that's the only way to have functions called dispatch for sure. But you can pass functions as props the normal way. Okay, so this is just being set edit true, set edit true. Let's just console log our props. Man, this is really bugging me tonight. Of course, it's being super lame. I'm getting pretty frustrated at Code Sandbox because this is something that should be working properly right now. Boy, let's see. All right, I'm gonna refresh it. And we now have it. Okay, cool. Thanks, Code Sandbox. We can see here now in our props that set edit true is there. We click that, we should get our editing box in there. All right, sorry about this. All this stuff happening with Code Sandbox here, it's bugging, and it makes it hard for me to show you what I need to show you. But here we are. Okay, so now when I click on that, set editing true is there. All right. Any questions right now? We have completed this loop. We haven't updated the title. I'm not going to go there because we did that on Monday. I just wanted to make sure that we were understood what was happening with Redux and we could set it up again from scratch. Any questions right now about this? I know there's probably a lot of confusion right here. Just remember that whatever we return from map state to props is going to be props with our state in it. Whatever we return from map dispatch to props is going to be a prop with a function that's going to be dispatched for us in it. Okay, and we can use those props anywhere as we would want in our component. See some typing, so I'm going to give it a moment. Eric, if you're comfortable with, if this is more comfortable for you, by all means, go for it. Totally fine. But either way, it works the same. Okay. This is just like passing a call back in here, essentially. We're connect every time our reducer is updated or state is updated. Connect is going to call map state to props and pass the new state into it, and it's going to map it as it chooses. Yep. That's our action right now. And look, this is just a JavaScript function that returns an object. That's all it does. We got to remember that connect is doing all of our dispatching for us. Okay. Yeah, I could just do set edit true. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. This is just shorthand. All right. So I'm going to move on because we have some important stuff to talk about tonight. So let's quickly talk about a finite state machine and what it is in a very general way. You can get very deep into this, and if you'd like, there's a great Wikipedia article on finite state machine, which is where I got this. But essentially, what we're talking about here is that we can only have state existing in one state at a time. Our application can only exist in one state at a time. So this is our classic finite state machine here, right? This is a turnstile. You know, if you live in a city and you ride a public transportation, a subway more specifically, you're used to turnstiles. Now instead of a coin, we use a card. But essentially, it's you have two states we can be in. Can we ever be in both locked and unlocked at the same time? Is that possible? Question for you. This isn't like Schrodinger's turnstile, right? We can't be in both states at the same time. It can be a quantum state, sure, but we're not going there right now. We're being very, very, very high level about this. We can only be in one of these at a time. We can never be in both at the same time. So we have a finite amount of states, right? The same goes for our apps, okay? In this turnstile, if you push on it and it's locked, it will stay locked. It will stay locked. No matter how much you push on it, it's going to stay locked. But when you put a coin in there, it will then it will unlock, okay? And once it's unlocked, you can push on it, it'll let you through, and then it locks again. You keep putting a coin in, and it'll keep going. All right, and so that's essentially what's happening with our Redux state, right? Where we can only be in one state at a time. Let's come in here, and I can, you know, maybe update title is props.set edit true. Okay, maybe I have this. What happens if I press update title? What's going to happen? Nothing, because it's going to continue setting edit to true, right? That is essentially our pushing locked or coin unlocked here. Okay, only once and let's come in here. Sorry for flopping around all over the place. Only once I come in here and say, let's just do something like this. Set edit false. I'm going to create a very done editing. Very quickly, I'm going to just create a done editing action. Okay. And let's import it and then hook it up. Set edit false. Okay, that's how many steps you need to add one simple little Boolean. Now, of course it isn't. Save it, refresh it. Oh gosh. Code Sandbox, you're killing me. Now it can go back and forth. Okay. We are only ever in one state at a time. We are either in editing true or editing false, right? We are never at both at the same time. Okay. So that would be the concept of our finite state machine. I just wanted to bring that up and talk about it a little bit because it's part of our training kit. And it's important to understand the states that our app can be in. Now, does our app can it only ever have two states? Question for you. Can it only ever have two states? It can have thousands, right? It could be in hundreds of thousands of different states, but it can only be in one at a time. That's important to understand. 42. Yes, the answer. It can be, you can have as many states as you possibly want, but there's a finite amount and they can only be in one at a time. Okay. All right. Whew. That being said, let's come in here and let's talk about let's go into our actions. And let's say that we had a how am I going to write this right now? We had an asynchronous set time out. An asynchronous function So timeout, not defined. Is that timeout? Okay, the right way. Now we have an asynchronous function. This is going to wait 500 milliseconds to fire. Okay. Now let's say this isn't something like set edit false. This is maybe we go and we get some data from an API. Okay. So what happens when I press update title here? Anyone know? Is it going to set editing to false or what's it going to do? Oh, should not have done that. Oh boy. I knew set timeout wasn't going to work the way I wanted it to. Let me just plug this into an API then to begin with. I can't think of a good way to do this an asynchronous way. Essentially, what we want to do is we want possibly to have our app not just switch over automatically. It's switching over automatically because it's returning our done editing right off the bat. We want to give it a waiting state. Say we have this. Let me draw a little bit. Sorry, I was kind of thrown off by set timeout here. Say we have our action. We have an API call, and we have some state that it returns, and we want to update the state. Okay. In between there, we now have three different states, right? We have our, let me draw this a little bit better, API. We have our complete. and we have our initial. We'll just say initial. So we click on a button. We want to have it in like a loading state. We'll just say this is loading. Okay. We have a loading state. We send an API call. When we come to this complete state, we want our loading to be complete. But we also want it to update state as well with whatever our API came up with. Okay. So how do I use one action to do all of these things? That's where we'll, okay. While it waits, right? I want one action to do all of these things while it waits. Yeah, we're going to use what's called a thunk, but let's slowly move into it. And I just went off the top of my head, came up with a good way to show that. So let's just have a, let's clear that. Let's clear that. Let's have a loading. Return type loading. So I wanted to do a loading thing. Maybe I can do, maybe I can do this dispatch, this action inside of here, right? Like how do I do this? I want, when I click on update title, for it to set the we'll have a loading, get rid of friends. Let's do loading. We want to set this loading to true, but we want to wait a minute. We want to wait till something's happening for it to done editing. Maybe when we update our title, it sends the new title to our server, and we want to wait for that server to send that back like, okay, everything's updated, it's good to go. And then say done editing, right? With our new title. We can't do both of those things with Redux as it stands. If I return my edit type loading, and let's go boop, 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 case loading. If I return that, let's come and click on this again. It's going to give us an error, but it's not going to work for us now, okay? So we want our action to be able to say like, okay, we're going to set our type to loading. We're going to wait for a moment, and then we're going to set it to done editing, okay? And we can put a loading thing on here in a moment. So we have to use another library. We have to do something called an async action. And there are actual, this is from the Redux docs itself. There are this idea of asynchronous actions in here, right? And these asynchronous actions are almost always, for you all right now, going to pertain to getting data from a server, right? Where you go and get data from a server, and you have to wait for a moment, and then you can update your store with that data from the server, right? So you can come in here, and it'll talk a little bit about some asynchronous actions in using it in a single way, but we wanted to be able to have multiple pieces of state on the same action, okay? So one more thing we're going to introduce is a concept of middleware. And a thunk is going to allow us to do an asynchronous action, but middleware is actually going to allow us to use other libraries in conjunction with Redux, all right? And so what our middleware is going to do is it is essentially going to, I'll annotate again. when an action is dispatched, and there's my 3 boxes again. Action is dispatched. And let's just say it goes straight to the reducer. Okay. A middleware is actually going to hijack that dispatch and send something else off to the reducer. All right. Of course, deleted the whole thing. So then in this case, we're going to be able to put that dispatch through something like a proxy, sure. And we're going to be able to do something with that dispatch. Whatever that action is, whatever has been done, right? As soon as that action is dispatched, we're going to get it in our middleware before it gets to our reducer. And we can do something with it. And so that's just the concept of middleware. Middleware is not a Redux idea. Middleware is a programming idea where we have this library that does one thing, and it does one thing very specifically. But and you'll see in a few weeks when we get into backend, we use a lot of middleware in the backend with Express. But we have this idea of sending our data through some filters and through some other things that'll help us out. Okay. And so, of course, clear. This is one more thing that we kind of got to plug a lot of things in to get it to work at first. And not a lot, much less than normal Redux. So we're going to include something called a Redux thunk. And a Redux thunk is a piece of middleware that allows us to use asynchronous actions. And it will allow us to dispatch as many actions as we'd like throughout the course of the life of this action, throughout the entire asynchronicity. It will allow us to dispatch however many actions we'd like. This is where we kind of get back control of that dispatch keyword and that function itself. And so let's take a quick break. I know this is kind of a lot of information. I hope that you all watch the videos, and then kind of this is just rehashing that information again. In a moment after our break, we'll hook up a thunk and we'll get it to work, and then we'll hook it up to an API very simply. All right, so let's take a quick break and come back, and we will do all that. See you in 5. All right, come on back. Sorry, I think that a lot of this stuff is really better and explained actually seeing it work. And so in this case, let's actually come in here to our title component. Let's just put something in here like, so props.loading, and we'll have a h1 that just says loading, else null. And then let's include our loading state. Okay. So let's come into our reducer as well. And when we're editing, when we're done editing. Okay. So how we include middleware, and I'm going to get rid of that for a second, and let's just do this, is that we will come into our index where we have our create store, and we're going to grab another method from create store called apply middleware, or excuse me, from Redux called apply middleware. So we can see, there's a couple different ways we can use middleware in here. Thunk is one of the few middlewares that you're actually going to use with, why doesn't it give us just the basic rundown of apply middleware? Let's go to API reference, apply middleware. That's what we want. Okay, so apply middleware is going to allow us to pass another library in and let it kind of gain access to our actions as they're being dispatched. Okay, there's some behind the scenes stuff that is going on that you can actually yourself as developers jump in and create your own middleware. It's pretty simple actually. Once you understand what's happening, it allows us, it gives the middleware this get state and this dispatch. Okay, and that's it. And it'll allow the middleware to grab a hold of that dispatch and that current state and the updated state and the action, do something to it, and then move on. All right. What we're going to do is, as we see in here, we are going to use apply middleware directly in our create store here with the middleware we want to use. All right. And so let's come into here. We have apply middleware. We need to add Redux Thunk. Okay, we need to import Redux Thunk. Import Thunk from Redux Thunk. And now we can use our Thunk inside of our actions. So we do a comma, takes the second argument, and we can just add it in there now. All right, so now that we have our Thunk in here, let's look at our actions, and let's talk about what Redux Thunk is actually doing. It is taking control of our action, and it is allowing us to call dispatch on our own. First thing I want you to notice is that when I click on this right here, we are dispatching the set edit true action, right? We see in here that set edit true just returns an action. What do you think Redux Thunk is going to do to this action here? Any questions? Not let it go to reducer? That's one answer. Any other guesses on this? We haven't really looked at what Redux Thunk does super in depth yet, but this is just a plain old action. What's going to happen with it now that Redux Thunk is taking control of it? We have one that says hold it. Who else has a guess on this? Can change it? It can change it, sure. But right now, when I click on this, nothing. It's actually gonna just let this pass through like nothing has ever happened. Okay. It's like, oh, what Redux Thunk is doing under the hood is it's saying, is what's being returned an object? If it is, then it's going to let it pass through without touching it. Then it's going to say, is what's being returned a function? If it's a function, then Redux Thunk is going to say, this is a thunk. So we can come into here and we can see that our increment is totally fine. It gets passed through. What Redux Thunk allows us to do is allows us to return a function. And Thunk is going to pass us that dispatch argument. It's going to pass us the dispatch so then we can then take back control and we can dispatch all of our own actions ourselves. And let me show you how that works. So what we want to do is we want to return a function. So this is, of course, we are returning a function. And when, let's actually just do this. We're not returning anything from here anymore. When we return a function, Thunk is going to say, okay, that's a thunk. That's a function. Remember, if it's an object, regular action lets it pass. If it's a function, it's going to say that's a thunk. It's a function. Let's call that function. Let's not let anything pass. And we're going to give that function dispatch. Okay. At that point, we now can say dispatch, of course, dispatch. And we can say dispatch loading, okay? Of course, actions, they are plain objects, but sure. Unless, of course, this hasn't applied our middleware for us. There we go. Now we see that loading is dispatched, right? Look at that. Loading has been dispatched for us. Okay. Well, it hasn't been dispatched for us. We dispatched it ourselves. All right. And now let's do this as 2 seconds. We can then say, hey, go and get something asynchronously. And after you're done, then dispatch that. Okay. So look at here. We are dispatching 2 actions asynchronously with our same action creator. So now, update title, in just 2 seconds, it should do it for us. Of course. Let's go save on that. Nope. Let's do a refresh. Click on that. Update title, 1, 2, and it's done. Okay, so that is a thunk. That's all a thunk is, right? That's it. That's all it is. It just allows us to return a function instead of an object as our action, and then allows us to take control of dispatch in here. So what we need to do, once again, is get apply middleware. We need to get thunk, and we just hook it up, okay? Now it allows us to apply our own actions and dispatch our own actions asynchronously. Questions on this at the moment? Yeah, thunk is a function returned from an action creator. So remember, this is an action creator in here, and this is actually going to return an action. Remember, an action is just an object. This is an action creator. This is going to return thunk. Okay, and that allows us to dispatch when and where we please. I don't see a lot of chatter. I don't see a lot of questions being asked or things happening in here. I know this is probably pretty confusing, although I think that this is probably maybe one of the less confusing things about Redux, I think. But I think it's pretty slick as well. And it allows us to do a lot of really cool things asynchronously, where we don't have to, if we were to do something like this, we would have to maybe call like 3 different actions that waited for another action, and you can't wait, and it's just really crazy. Yeah, dispatch can be anything. It's foobar. But we want to call it dispatch so we know what's happening. Yes, Matthew, you are correct. Okay, like I said, 99% plus of times that you are all right now are going to use thunks, especially for the foreseeable future, it's API calls. Absolutely. And we can hook up a quick API right here where I can show you as well. I'm trying to think about your use effect question. Let me think more on that. I don't want to dismiss it off the bat because I think maybe there's some similarities. Yeah, you did break me. There might be some similarities, but let me think about that. My initial response is to say no, but yeah, let me think. Let's hook this thing up to an API and let's just let's see it in real life as it happens. Okay, so my notes have this like Kanye West API quote generator, and that's what we're going to use. But what you're going to use tonight and tomorrow are this really cool list. And actually, we can do it. Let's do something else on this list. I don't want to do Kanye. So this is a list of all open APIs. This is the public APIs list. These are open APIs. You are free to use these. Some of them have auth that you need to sign up for a key with. Anything that says no auth and HTTP yes is going to be good to go. So like, let's just do random fox. That's a really crazy weird one. Random fox. Okay. Random fox. And what if we just do random fox regular? Let's see what happens. Oh, no. I want the actual API. Okay, so let's see if it gives us a random fox every time. It does. Cool. Okay, so this is an API that gives us an image and a link where we can just pull the image up, and it's a picture of a fox and the fox's kit. Okay. I hope. Oh yeah, it's obviously the same one because I didn't refresh it. It's just going to give us something with a picture of a fox on it. Okay, really simple. Let's take that. Boop. Let's jump back in. I am going to create a new component called fox pick. All right. Import React from React. I'm going to try to do this quick, but also I want to not go over time, but I also want to make sure that you guys are all, we're going to import connect from React Redux function fox pick props and let's just do I'm not going to return anything for the second. Let's go export default connect fox pick. Okay, let's actually take loading off of here. Take loading off of there. And I want to use it for our Fox pick. So we're going to do state loading. And then we're going to add a piece of state called Fox. This is going to be called Fox. State.fox. And let's seed our state with this one. Okay. There we go. To our index, we're going to say Fox is going to just be this current Fox in here. Cool, cool, cool. Fox pick. We're going to return a div that's going to have an image. Our source is going to be our props dot. Wait, why is it saying that's? Oh, props.fox. Let's just see what we get. Okay. Let's go to app. There we go. Ah, beautiful. We got our Fox pick. Okay. Our first one. All right. Now let's say we want a button that will just randomly get another Fox pick. Okay. It's just going to get the random one, right? We have this URL right here, randomfox.ca/floof is going to give us a random image link from there. Okay. So let's come in here and let's add a button. We're going to have an on click. And it says get rando fox. And of course, we want to just put a function in there so it doesn't get mad at us right now. We got a get rando fox button in here. Okay. When we click this, what we want this to do is we want our loading to go to true, and we want to wait. We want to call our API. We want to wait for that to return. And when it returns, we want to change the Fox to our new Fox pick, right? So let's create an action for that. Let's go export const get Fox. Okay, I need to add Axios real quick because that would be the easiest way for me to do it. Got Axios in here. Okay, so because I'm calling an API, what do I need to return from this action creator? Ooh. So I'm going to call an API. I want to make sure that when I hit this, that loading happens, right? That we go into a loading state. And then when we get our new Fox back, I want to be able to make sure that we can update with our new Fox. Okay, so let's think about this. Do I want to just return type loading like this? Well, that's going to allow us to change our type of loading, but it's not going to wait for our new Fox picks to load, right? So what do I need to return from this if I want to wait for something? If I want to dispatch multiple actions from our action creator here, let's look right up here to line 12. What I want to return is a thunk, okay? Line 11, actually. And what is a thunk? A thunk is a function. Now, Prettier makes it so that this doesn't look like a function maybe to you, but this is a function. I'm returning a function here. So instead of just returning the type of loading, I'm going to return a function. Okay. That function is a thunk, and it gives us access to dispatch. All right. Dispatch, then, we can call whenever we would like. So now we can call our loading. We can call dispatch, put an action in here, type of loading, and it'll send it off as we want. Okay. So let's plug this in to our Fox app here. I'm going to get rid of that. Let's go Fox pick, and I'm actually going to want to do something like this. Let's go Fox.loading H1 loading otherwise. Okay, so I'm going to import get Fox from my actions. I'm going to map dispatch to props with get Fox. Okay. And then I'm going to call it when I click this button. Save that. And when I click this, it's going to call this action, which is a thunk. Thunk is going to give us dispatch, and we're going to just dispatch the type of loading off right off the bat. Okay. Of course. Get Fox not. And there we go. Now we have our loading. Okay, we're loading now. All right. So that's working. Don't want app. I want actions. And I want our reducer. Okay. Now that we've done it to loading, now what do we want to do? We want to get another Fox pick. So now how do we go about getting that other Fox pick? Just a random one. All we have to do is call that address. Yeah, you see a pretty good one on there. What we have to do is now we're going to run Axios, right? Dot get. And let's put that address in there. randomfox.ca/floof. Okay. Once, how long, let me ask you a question. How long is this going to take? This line here. How long is that going to take? Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Randomflux.ca, even though it's a .ca, it should be Canada, could be hosted in like Antarctica and have like really bad lag to cross some sort of frozen fiber optic lines or something. Okay, we don't know how long that's going to take. And we don't care. We just know that it's going to come back. It's a promise, right? So we can say .then. It's going to give us a response no matter what. Okay, it's going to give us a response. And let's just console log that response. And let's open our console. I'm gonna get right into Fox. Why is our response not console logging? Okay, it's taking a little too long. Response. Let me get rid of my other consoles. Yeah, I could do a catch on it. Yeah, it could tell me, well, I should do a catch. Let me get rid of my other console logs so we don't get confused in here. Okay. Actions. Let's do our try or then catch error. We are getting an error. Don't know what error it was. What is our error? This is what we want. No. Okay. Why isn't it giving us our error? Oh my gosh, it's killing me tonight. I'm like about to lose it on Code Sandbox right now. Get random Fox. Error for no reason. Okay. Get then. Well, I'll try. Let's do a little Code Sandbox refresh. Still getting an error. So there's definitely some sort of error happening for us. We are calling it get random Fox properly. Get Fox. Okay. Let's do a little console login here. Are we getting? Yeah. Yep, we are. Console log res. Doesn't tell us what our error is. Problem. Yeah, I don't care about that right now. Oh, yeah, that's probably it. Thank you. Nope. Okay. I'm not going crazy. This is killing me. Let's see. We are running out of time. That works. That's a normal address. That's supposed to work. Get that. We do eventually, but we don't have to right now. We should be able to get our error out of here. It's not giving us what our error is. It should. There's nothing syntactically wrong with this right now. Axios is returning what we want it to. Okay, that's true. Okay, I'm going to write the code out for you. I'm going to get it to work, but we have run out of time. So what we are going to do here is we are going to return a type of new Fox. We're going to give a payload of and it's going to be our res.data.image is what it says on here. Image, yep. Okay, that's going to be our payload. In our reducer, we are going to create a new Fox. New Fox, and then we're going to say state loading is going to be false at that point, and Fox is going to be action.payload. We're getting an error. That's the code. This code should be working. Not 100% why it's not right now, but I will get it to work. I will get it back to you. What we can see here is that we've dispatched our loading action. We have become into a loading state, and now we're waiting for it to return to us. Once we get that data back, we can then dispatch, oops, not return, but dispatch, excuse me. Yeah, that's why, Kevin, I don't think it's coming from the API. That's coming from Code Sandbox. Thank you. Yeah, I can do the Kanye one. Let's see if it works, but I don't think, we'll see what happens. It's going to break everything, but. And I'm going to log res. Oh, Kanye is working. Okay. All right, might have had something to do with that API, unfortunately. Shouldn't have. Let's actually save that again. We're getting the error. Okay. Essentially, the heart of the matter is that we get down is that we return a function. We can then dispatch actions when we want to. Okay, when and where we please, right? So we can wait for this Axios to call to come back and then dispatch something. And we should have an error handler here to dispatch an error if something's happened. But this is a thunk. This is the ability to dispatch actions asynchronously. Sorry for so much technical difficulties tonight. It has been as frustrating for me as it has been for you. I apologize for that. Hopefully you have something to go off of and something to think about. There's a lot of great information in Training Kit about all of this stuff as well. But just getting the concept down of when we can dispatch actions, creating actions in different ways, and doing it asynchronously. So thanks for sticking with me tonight, guys. I apologize once again for the technical errors and difficulties. It doesn't seem like anything would go right tonight, but hopefully we got it through it, and we kind of have a better understanding what's happening. Go pick a cool. I thought this Fox one should work. I'm still bugging me why it's not. But there's a ton. Look at all these. All of these are APIs. Whatever your heart desires, and then create something cool with it. Just something simple and cool. Like it's pretty awesome. So that's what I've got for you tonight. Thanks once again. Have a good night, everyone, and I'll see you later.